You are never going to build a car cheaper than you can buy one that's already done. A vintage car, a classic car, a hot rod, whatever. It's not going to happen. And it never has happened. In the history of history, it never has happened. You'll never build a car cheaper than you can buy one that's already done. I mean, unless you're talking about, I don't know, what the hell do you call them? Rat rods? The rusty shit that you see on the road, the junk that's held together with license plates and road signs and screws. And I know a lot of people like that stuff. I mean, I think it's kind of garbage, most of it, because I've seen a lot of it, and it is garbage. I mean, I get nervous following that shit down the road or having that stuff behind me, because if something happens and you stomp on the brakes, are you going to push the master cylinder through the firewall because the thing's rusty and as thin as a piece of stinking tinfoil? Is the guy driving it going to fall through the floor because the floor is made out of road signs and license plates pop riveted together? I don't know. I just don't have confidence. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like a nice, shiny car, whatever it is that we're talking, whatever you want to point at, a Barracuda, a Charger, a Mustang, a Cougar, a Chevelle, whatever. It just ain't going to happen. And the people that you're talking to, if you think that it is going to happen, well, they're lying to you. They're full of shit. And even if they're not lying to you, well, they're still full of shit. Because it doesn't happen. It doesn't matter what you can do. It doesn't happen. So anyways, where the hell was I? Oh, yeah. So the guy that you're talking to, discussing this with, who's telling you that, oh, just build it yourself. Like everybody wants way too much money for everything nowadays. I built my own 71 Nova, and I sold that car for $38,000, and I made 10 grand on that car over what it cost me to build it. Now, just think about that conversation for a second before you're sitting there going, maybe I should get a 71 Nova and build it myself, and then I can sell it, and I can make 10 grand. That peckerhead is leaving out huge chunks of the conversation. And at the very least, he's leaving out very important details. So you buy a car and you build it, and everybody talks about how much money I got into it. Well, how much time have you got into it? If you're going to do a fair comparison between buying a finished product or building something you drug out of a river, don't jump up on me, and building that to completion to a finished product, well, you have to have a relevant conversation. I mean, you can't take a bag of Ripple chips and pour ketchup on it and call it nachos, because it ain't the same things. To build a car, there's labor involved in everything you do. Everything takes time to do. And those guys that make a whole lot of money about it, that are telling you it's cheaper to build it than it is to buy it, they're counting their labor at about 29 cents an hour. I mean, the cost of parts is the cost of parts nowadays. Your shops, they'll get a deal and they'll mark it up. But chances are pretty good that even still, you're going to get the part, you're going to wind up paying a little bit less for that part, mechanical part, whatever, through your mechanic shop than you would probably pay for it if you went and bought it retail. If you jumped in your little Datsun truck and you drove down to Napa, to whoever, bought your chrome valve covers, bought your Holley carburetor, bought your whatever you're buying from Napa. I don't know what you're buying from Napa. Your Christmas tree air fresheners? I don't know. Chances are still pretty good that you're going to go down there, and from Napa, you yourself walking in there wearing your shitty torn up old sneakers, you're going to pay $485 for that Holley carburetor. I don't know what a carburetor is. I haven't bought one in a long time, and I live in Canada. In Canada, they're $7,000 goddamn dollars. Versus the shop buying that carburetor, putting it on your car, and their price on it with their markup and everything is $420. You know, you're still saving little bits and pieces here and there by having them do it versus buying it yourself. And like I said, the time that's involved in absolutely everything takes time. And nowadays, even more so, because nowadays all the parts that you're buying, well, they're all a piece of garbage. They're all junk. They're all shit. So you can't just take apart and put it on. If you're doing the body work, you can't just take your panel out of a box that you got to weld onto the whatever and take it over there with the whoever on the however and weld it to the wherever on the whatever. You can't just do that because you got to take hammers and you got to take die grinders and you got to smash the shit out of it and you got to hog out the holes and you got to fit it on there 9 times. I mean, you can't just huck it up there and be done with it nowadays. So that all takes time. So when you're buying a finished vehicle, the market dictates, and the market is retarded now too, even though the market dictates what that car is going to be worth. So you build that car and you pay to build it and stuff, and you're selling it at a loss. TV cars, maybe, Jimmy Johnson auctions, okay, that's a whole different world than I live in. And that's a bullshit world too. Remember when I said that whoever said they're doing it, they're lying to you and they're full of shit? All these TV auctions where all these cars are going through and everybody thinks, oh, my 76 C10 is worth $85,000 because I saw one go through for $105,000, so mine's got to be worth at least three quarters of that. You're full of shit. Your truck's not worth that. That truck on TV, it wasn't worth that because they're full of shit. Everybody's full of shit. Can you smell what I'm stepping in? It's shit. Calm down. The parts and materials for everything nowadays cost a lot of money. If you can paint it yourself, like I got a paint booth sitting here and I can paint stuff. Regardless of that, in the last couple of years, the materials, the liquids that I mix up and pour into a paint gun and you pour it onto a vehicle and get runs and pour it all over the floor and all that kind of shit, it's all worth, some of it, shit, in the last 2 years, some of the stuff that I buy and that I use has gone up 150%. And I'm not even, I ain't even joking. Like I used to buy clear coat, and it used to be the exact same clear coat. A few years ago, it was like to harden and reduce it up here in our beaver money. It was like $485 for a gallon. Actually, it was for a 5-quart bucket. In 2 years, that's gone up to over $800. And I mean, that's just a clear coat. Sandpaper and shit, it used to be, like I keep track of it to charge people for the materials that I use when I work on their car. A box of sandpaper, I figured it out that it used to be worth, I think it was 29 cents a sheet or something ridiculous like that. How the hell much is it worth now? I got it written up there. Where's sandpaper? Where is it? Son of a bitch. It ain't worth 29 cents anymore. Now it's worth, shit, I think a box of 100 sheets of sandpaper now is $75 or $80. I mean, that's like 75 or 80 cents a sheet. And that's my cost on it. So in all honesty, a lot of times when you see an ad for a car that's for sale, how do I get all cockeyed like this? When you see an ad for a car that's for sale, and if the ad says that they've got $85,000, $100,000 invested in the car, well, it's probably a pretty damn nice car. And I'll bet you they're not, if that's somebody who can't do nothing. So they're probably not that far off in what it cost them to build that car. Hey, cut it out back there. If you drag a car out of the bushes and take it to a body shop and the thing is still full of skunks and rats and everything else in there, but you want to come back with polished, shiny, 3-stage blue pearl paint on it, well, you're probably paying that body shop $45,000 or $50,000 from start to finish for that car. So if you're going to have $100,000 into a car, there's half of it right there. If you're going to do a motor from scratch, if you're going to put an old Buick nail head motor in it or something, by the time you're done, you're probably going to be into that motor for $11,000 or $12,000. Nowadays, a stinking transmission is worth $3,000 for a GM Turbo 350 run-of-the-mill trip over them when you're walking down an alley transmission. So to build it, yeah, you're going to spend $100,000 on that car. To buy it, you're probably going to pay $70,000 for it. That's a better deal. And all the other people that if they say, well, I got this much money in the car, so this is what I want for it. Well, then why the hell would you buy it? Why wouldn't you get a car and just go and pay and have it done yourself if it's the same money? Why am I buying your car for that if I could just build my own damn car for that? Huh? So yeah, back to the point, I mean, it's never going to happen. It's a way cheaper to buy something that's already done. And you know, another point of that is if you buy a car that's built and it's got a handful of miles on it or a pocket full of miles on it. Hopefully you buy a car that's built and it's got a whole bag full of miles on it. There's been a lot of bugs that have been worked out of that car. And you know what a bug is? A bug is money. A bug might not be $50, $100, but a bug that's worked out of that car is probably $100, and there's probably a whole lot of $100 bugs that have been worked out of that car. That if you build a car from scratch, you're the one sitting on the side of the road phoning your wife to come and get you because you don't know what happened. The thing just died, or the gas gauge doesn't work right, or it suddenly overheated because there was a vapor lock in the cylinder head that I didn't know about, and I just barfed all the antifreeze up in the air and on the road on the side of the highway. Chances are pretty good if you buy a car that somebody's driven a few times, that's not going to happen to you. Don't worry about the built not bought boys. You know what I'm talking about? The crowd of guys that turn their nose up at you. Oh, how long have you been working on this? Oh, I just bought it last week. Oh, you bought it. You didn't build it. You bought it. Oh, I see. And they turn around and walk away from you. Don't worry about those clowns. 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, 11 times out of 10, most of the time, them guys that turn their nose up at you and have that attitude, they're in their like 50s and 60s, right? They've been around the block a few times. They've built a few cars. Are they still driving the same damn car that they got when they were 14 years old and they started building in high school? Is that what they're still driving? Or have they built a half a dozen cars, 10, 11 cars, 14 cars, 122 cars, and their last 40 years of working on cars? All the cars that they built, where did they go? Do they still got them at home? Did they burn them? Did they just take them out in the alley and set them on fire? No, they sold them. Somebody bought them. Who bought them? And what did they do with them once they bought them? They probably drove them, put some gas in them, and drove them. Cut it out. There's a fat kitty just itching to piss me off here. Now just quit it. Quit looking at me like that. So don't worry about that crowd. Don't worry about them guys. If your skin is that thin, well, then you got pretty thin skin. So just don't worry about them. I mean, who's to say that when you and old bought it not built it Barney are sitting at a red light downtown, is he enjoying his car that much more than you are? Probably not. You probably enjoy your car more because you really wanted one, you found one, and now you're so happy that you found one and you got one, and it didn't take 7 years of your life, and you didn't develop alcoholism while you were doing it, and it didn't cost you $126,000 to do it, and. So chances are you're just as happy as he is, maybe a little bit happier, because it took him 3 years to come up with his car, and it took you a week and a half of Craigslist and Bargain Finder newspapers and Facebook Marketplace, and then you found your car. So don't sweat it. Don't worry about them guys. They're a bunch of dickheads. But if you're new to this, then just that's a valid point that you are never, and you know, I've said it about 129 times, and here's 130. You are never going to build a car cheaper than you can go out and buy what you've already got. You might want an emerald green Nova, but you found a gold one that has everything else that you wanted. Is that bad? I mean, you can probably live with the gold, can't you? You wanted a Hugger orange Camaro, but you found a red one. You wanted a plum crazy purple Dart, but you found a B5 blue Dart. It's still nice. It's still, you know, and I mean, even if you got something like that, even if you wanted to do a color change splash on it outside and in the door jambs, if it's a nice car, after you do that, you're still going to probably be into that car for way under what it would take to build it. So that's my 2 bits on that. I don't know if that did anything for you or not. If it did, sweet. If it didn't, well, what are you going to do? Thanks for watching.